Welcome to my class. Our topic for today will be Mendel's laws. We'll be talking on the first and second laws, Mendelian and non-Mendelian traits. In brief, Mendel's first law. So I'm going to give you some time to go through this, then we get it over. Let's consider the gene that determines height. Every such gene has a genotype by this law. The genotype consists of the various forms of that gene, which are the alleles. So this is the genotype. This is the dominant allele and the recessive allele. So this genotype undergoes meiosis to produce gametes, in which each allele produces a gamete that can be inherited by the offspring. So this will give us a gamete like this and another gamete like this. So any of them can be inherited by the offspring independently. That's just the first law. Key points on Mendel's first law. The law applies to all sexually reproducing organisms. It explains why offspring can inherit different traits from their parents. The law assumes that each allele is equally likely to be passed down to the offspring. Mendel's second law. It states that genes for different traits are inherited independently of each other. So let's consider this strand in red as a chromosome and the stars as genes. So if the first gene is to be inherited by the offspring, the process through which that gene is inherited by the offspring is independent of the process through which the second gene, third or fourth is being inherited. So they are inherited differently. Their inheritance is not linked. Point to note about Mendel's second law. So the first is, the law applies when two or more genes are located on different chromosomes or are far apart on the same chromosome. The law assumes that the genes are not physically linked, which means that they are not located together on the same chromosome. It means that for this law to apply, either the genes should be on separate chromosomes, or if they are on the same chromosome, they should be distant apart. Because if they are close, they become linked, and a phenomenon called linkage will occur, which will result into the genes being inherited together, which violates Mendel's second law. And finally, the law helps to explain why offspring can inherit a combination of traits that is different from either parents. So you have to note all these things about Mendel's second law. What are Mendelian traits? Mendelian traits are physical or behavioral characteristics that are determined by a single gene with two alleles, and they follow the laws of inheritance discovered by Gregor Mendel. So there are three things that characterize a Mendelian trait. First, it should be governed by a single gene. The second is the genotype of that gene should be made up of two alleles, and the third is it should follow the Mendel's law, which is Mendel's law 1 and Mendel's law 2. So if we say that height is a Mendelian trait, it should have a genotype with two alleles following the Mendel's laws. Classification of Mendelian traits. So they can be classified into two: dominant and recessive. Now let's look at the difference between dominant and recessive traits. A dominant trait will be expressed in an individual if they inherit at least one copy of the dominant allele, while a recessive trait will only be expressed if an individual inherits two copies of the recessive allele. So let's consider that height is a Mendelian trait with two alleles, T dominant for tall and T recessive for short. So an individual with this genotype is tall, and this tall as well, and this is short. So we can say that the trait of tallness is a dominant trait because by an organism inheriting just a single allele makes that organism to portray the trait tall. But then for a short person, the trait short is a recessive trait because the organism requires two short alleles to portray that trait. Non-Mendelian traits. Non-Mendelian traits are inherited characteristics that do not follow Mendelian patterns of inheritance. Non-Mendelian traits can be caused by a variety of genetic mechanisms. We've got a couple of them like incomplete dominance, codominance, multiple alleles, polygenetic inheritance, mitochondrial inheritance, epigenetic inheritance. Watch out for a next video that will be more explained on non-Mendelian traits. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to my channel for more explicit videos.